Hi, my name is Madeline Parker, and I am an astrologer. And before I was an astrologer, well, before I became so fascinated by astrology, I was working as a psychic medium, and I would help people connect with their past loved ones, spirit guides. And then I got very interested in astrology, and I used to have quite a few clients coming to me for questions connecting or to help connect them with their guides and their past relatives and loved ones. But then I became very interested in astrology. And so then all of my energy sort of went to that. And now I have many clients coming to me for astrology. But one of the things that I feel very called to do is to bring forward some of the information that I got when I was channeling some of my clients' past relatives and loved ones. And one of the most significant spirits that came through was that of a young girl who passed away. She was a girl, a member of our community in my town that I lived in California. And I knew her mother, but not that well at the time. And I one day woke up in my town and discovered that she had passed away. This very wonderful girl that everyone was very impressive girl, um, very kind, very benevolent, and it was very, very upsetting. And so I went to go speak to my spirit guide at the time, which is my grandfather. And I went into my steam room, as it were. That's where I usually get very good contact and connection when I needed it for me. And her spirit guide came through, and I asked him, why was it that we had to lose her? What was the benefit of that? And he told me that she was a level 10 purified soul. And so I thought, wow, that's interesting. What does that mean? And he said that she had had many, many lives and that she was now basically finished with her lives and she was ready to join the source. And so I started to really get very interested in this spirit guide that was coming through. And so I asked him, I started to meet him on a regular basis, and I brought him many, many questions. And one of them was, oh my gosh, do I have a level 10 purified soul child? And he said, no, don't worry. You have a level 4 soul child and a level 7 child. And then I said, well, what am I? And he said, you're a level 5 transition to a 6. And so I went into a lot of fascination around this. I did not really know much about reincarnation. It wasn't something that I really believed in or had a strong opinion about. So I asked the spirit guide, wow, is that true? Then we really do reincarnate. And he said, yes. He said, our soul begins as a level 1 soul, and then we go through many, many lives until we become purified, and then we go join with source. So I'm going to show you I'm going to open up my whiteboard here, and I'm going to do a little diagram. So I just got to wait for it to load up. So I'm going to show you what he told me. So he said we have up here is source, which is a light energy, which is the light frequency, pure light. And that he said that it was 98% light and 2% mass, right? And then down here we have the material realm, we have mass. So this is light. I'm new at this whiteboard. So this is light energy, and this is mass energy. So what happens is source is an entity that has to regenerate in order to stay alive, in order to stay and able to vibrate that light energy. It's like a battery. So it has to send down a soul. This is a new level 1 soul, comes down to earth and fuses with the material. And then it goes through multiple lives. Through each one of these is a life going around and around and around and around. And it's like recharging in light energy. So in other words, I forgot to add that what happens is, let's erase the whole thing. Let's erase the whole thing, erase the whole thing. And you start over. I mean, we didn't lose this information. It was good to show, but I'm going to start over. So basically, let me start again. So this is the light force, and it has 2% dark. So this is light with 2% dark. The 2% dark is mass energy, or mass. You could call it mass, 2% mass. And that mass energy, this is light. I suppose there is a text tool here. Anyway, that's light. So what happens is it has to maintain that ratio of 98%. I wish there was a typing tool here. I have to get better at this. So there's a ratio of a 2% to light, 98% light, 2% mass. And then down here, we have mass, which is 98%, 2% light. This is 2% light and 98% mass. It's the yin and yang, right? So that's yin and yang. Now what happens is the light energy, in order to maintain a body form, in order to enable itself to fuse with the mass energy, it has to maintain a certain amount of mass energy. Now what happens is the mass energy starts, the mass energy starts to build in this light thing, in this light entity. And so in order to maintain its ratio, it has to drop the dark energy as it builds. It gets heavier. So this dark energy starts to build up and amass into a heavier energy. So it drops down to the material, fuses with the material as a number 1 level soul. And then it goes through life after life after life, regenerating its light energy like a battery, recharging in light, recharging in light, charging in light, until it fuses, now becomes purified energy light, and then infuses more light energy to the mass energy, displacing the buildup, the constant buildup, or the level of mass energy that becomes heavy and drops back down. So basically, so in other words, each life, each physical being on the planet is somewhere on this trajectory of infusing more light energy. Now, how do you infuse more light energy? Through struggle, through strife. And every time you struggle and you have strife and you call in more light energy, you pray, you seek light, you go to the light for a solution, you become more light, less dense. And your soul, so when you're a level 1 soul, is the densest, dark, it has the heaviest amount of mass in the soul body. It is a 98% dark, 2% light in soul. So it's a dark energy, it's a dark soul. Now, level 1 souls, I'm going to get into that in a minute. So every time the soul comes back another life and it struggles and it calls for divine light, divine solution, the light, it builds in its light body. Now you never lose your 2% darkness. You offset the amount of darkness by more light building up, by more light. When you build more light into your soul, you become less dense, less dark. And then you become purified at the top, where you now become 2%. You've built your soul body, you've infused 98% more light energy than you do 2% dark. So that's why your higher level 10 levels, we're going to go from 1 to 10, are 98% light. And they haven't lost that 2%. They've just built their soul into more light. So it's now a higher ratio. When the soul is new, it is very much dark and all dark here, and little bit of light, divine light, but the divine is dropping its darker aspect of itself to regenerate light. And how do we regenerate light? We go through strife, struggles, and the more we call in the light through our struggles, the more we infuse more light into our psyche body, our soul body. Then we become 98% light. Then we're a purified soul. We no longer need to be here on earth. We now become infused. We now become able to join light, the divine energy. So we've enlightened. We've become more light. And that is how the divine continues to exist. It's a self-generating process. So the reason basically that we're here is so that the divine can continue to exist and create life. And so, but it has to create these new souls in order to exist, because there's always new souls being purified, refortifying divine light, building the light body to that entity, dropping its dark energy, building its light energy. So let's talk a little bit about a level 1 soul, the new soul that comes down. I hope this is clear. Feel free to ask questions. Where's my eraser? There's my eraser. So here's now a level 1 soul. This is a level 1 soul. Remember, it's 98% dark and 98% dark and 2% light. So I'm going to stop the whiteboard and talk to you a little bit about level 1 soul. So the level 1 soul is a brand new, has never been on earth before, and it has 0 skills. It is dominant dark, so fear-based, very, very fearful. Dark is no light, less light. You can tell a younger soul by the eyes. There's not a lot of light radiating from the soul, which is, you can see through the eyes. They tend to be homeless, or they're unable to self-sustain. Not all homeless people are number 1 souls. That is not true. They sometimes show up in the family. Now, a lot of families, a lot of people who give birth to children are, if you have a lot of children, the God, the light force, wants to send a younger soul through you as well, because we need to send younger souls through. Younger souls have to come down here. It's in order this process to happen. So the younger the soul, the really young souls are not capable of self-sustaining. They have no skills, because you develop skills through multiple lives, through living multiple lives. Now, when the brand new soul is here, they have very, very low connection with the body. It's very new in its body. So it doesn't have a lot of integration. The soul is not very integrated with the material very well. It does not have any skills. It does not know how to self-sustain. It has a very hard time connecting with people. It can really show up as, we would diagnose sometimes these people as mentally ill. A lot of families often have number 1 souls in them, and if they are a wealthy family, they will put them in some sort of an institution or some sort of keep them cared for, or shall we say, these people are not able to manifest very well at all. So they have to sort of be taken care of. And they have, shall we say, no understanding at all of how to manifest. So they tend to suffer the most in the material realm. It's pretty a hard existence to be a number 1 soul. And they often, now let me add one thing. When you come as a number 1 soul, there are many levels of a number one soul. The most number 1, the most newest of a soul, the very first life, they don't live very long. They tend to basically self-destruct, or are victims of tremendous amount of violence, or not tremendous amount, but you hear often about homeless people being victim and violated. So they can suffer some pretty extreme conditions. Cold, they suffer cold a lot. They hunger. They feel very disconnected from fellow man. They feel very separate from divine, from humanity. They have experienced extreme sense of separation in their existence. What else can I say about the number 1 soul? I mean, as now what happens is that as they suffer, they don't know how to turn to the light in order to increase their light body. So it can take quite a few lives as a number 1 soul before they reach to the point where they can take action that mitigates their suffering. So as the number one soul develops and grows, they become number two souls. And the number two soul is an angry number one soul. And they become very angry criminals. They violate people, they take, they're very entitled. They are very dark eyes. You can tell a lot of serial killers and violent criminals are young twos, high ones. In fact, the higher level one starts to pull themselves out of suffering through violence. Or it's basically entitlement through taking. They don't understand why it is that other people have these things and they don't. So they just think, well, they're just going to go take it. So the more violated a number one soul is, the more angry a number two soul is. So the more we're empathic to homeless people, toward not all, I mean, we should, yes, of course, empathic to the homeless, but I'm talking about the level ones. The more we help them, and I don't mean enable them, there's a way to help number one souls that empowers them and empowers them to help them to become more self-sustaining through teaching them skills, through rewarding. In other words, through positive actions, they become rewarded. So the more we take on and help the number one soul, the less of a violent criminal we get, and the less violent our society is in general. So because we're mitigating the angry number two soul. So the angry number two soul comes in as violated and angry and retaliates, and can often violate the number one soul, shall we say, the vulnerable number ones. And really what divine source energy would like for us is to really help the number ones so that we have a better world, because the less angry we have violated number ones, the better we are off, and the less violent offenders we have on the planet. So the young violent, the younger two soul is going to start experiencing a lot of physical pain, because as a backlash from their violence, they get violence played out at them. They end up in jail and prisons where they're violated and beat up. They get a lot of head trauma, and there's a point where the soul can't take it anymore. The soul cannot go through any more physical pain and suffering through violence. So the soul then gets to a young 3, high level 2, and they are basically at the mercy of the law and law enforcement. So not all police are number 3s, but they become young. Yeah, there's a fine line between the number 2 and the number 3 soul, and often people say there's a fine line between the police and the criminal. So you are very much looking at young 3s, high 2s tend to go for badges and authority positions, and they can be in religious situations where they have prominent positions. They like positions of authority. They feel very empowered by the uniform. Now, not the divine inserts many high-level souls into the police force, so that it's not, I'm not throwing all police and sort of, shall we say, people in uniforms as level 2, 3, young 3s. That is not what I'm saying. But a lot of them are attracted to the power of the badge, the power of that position, the power of that status. So that's why we do find many number 3 souls in positions of sometimes politicians, police, positions of authority, and they are now because they were violated not violated, but they were often, shall we say, pushed around, thrown into jail by the level 3s. They come back and want to be, they seek that position. They seek that position of authority. They feel very empowered by the badge, by the label, by the title. So you get the fine line between the abusive police and the number two, the high level two. So I'm going to end, where am I? I'm at 22 minutes here. I'm going to keep these short. So I'm going to talk more about level twos and threes in the next video. This was really just a focus on level one and level two. And I will go more into level three. Sorry, I meant level three and level fours. Level fours are performers. There's a whole reason the soul seeks self-expression, and I'll explain that in the next video. So if you have any questions, and if this interests you, please like and subscribe, and feel free to leave a comment and ask questions about this. And thank you for watching. Namaste.